Have you created a business for yourself, or is it a hobby, or have you just simply created a job? And again, I don't want that to sound offensive because it's not meant to be that way. Because the reality of it is, it's not wrong or right necessarily, but it can be. Because when you stay small, and there's nothing wrong with staying small, okay? But let's look at some disadvantages of staying small. Let's look at some advantages of staying small. And you don't have to want to be the next largest lawn and landscape company in the world either. There's a lot of, there's a lot of distance in between. And you can be a small company, but be running your company professionally and profitably as a business. And I think that's the difference that we want to talk about today, or I want to talk about today, is how you can remain small if you want to, but you still got to remember and remind yourself that the focus of what you want to do is have things set up professionally and run your business as a business. And I think a lot of our industry, by choice, and this is a choice that you make. This is an absolute choice that you make. And I made the choice myself not to run my business as a business for 9 years. But you have the choice and you have the flexibility to decide that, hey, I'm going to run my business as a business. It's not going to be a dog and pony show. Because when we look at the state of the industry from Lawn and Landscape Magazine, some of you guys are familiar with that magazine. There's several trade magazines out there that do state of the industry reports, but 76% of our industry, and I think this is an important number, 76% of our industry does less than $1 million of gross revenue in a year. Now, I can hear a lot of you guys, and I hear you out there saying, well, man, I ain't even close to that. And that's okay. You don't need to be. Let's look at another quick number. Now, and I'm not going to go through a bunch of numbers because numbers, they get convoluted and they get confusing and nobody really gives a shit. But here's the important part about these numbers. 42% of our industry, or almost half, not quite half, obviously. I know 50% is half of something, but 42% of our industry does less than $200,000 in gross revenue a year. So if we just pick that number out as a focus point and say, okay, of that 42%, how many of those companies are profitable companies? And that's something that my guest is going to help me a little bit with here in a minute when he calls in. How do you help yourself run your company more professionally? Because if it's just a hobby, and so many, and I'll throw myself under the bus first. For 9 years, I'd done nothing other than create a job for myself. I didn't have the things in place to help my company be more successful, be more profitable. Hang on just a second, guys. Got my guest calling in here. We're going to see if we can make this happen. This is Wayne. You're on Turfs Up Radio Live.
Wayne.
Hello.
Wayne, good stuff.
Hey,
can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I got you, Darren. Can you hear me okay? We good?
I can hear you quite well. Well.
Good deal. Hey, I appreciate you calling in. I was just talking about our industry as a whole, and what I'm talking about today is, have you created a hobby, a job, or a business? And the company size has nothing to do with that. I'm a firm believer that a person can have a small business and and run it like a business. What do you think of that, Darren?
Well, absolutely. as a matter of fact, that's the best time when you're small. That's the best time to start prepping, planning to be big, right? And to have some fun with it. I challenge the small guys to organize their business as if it's a big business, to play, just to have a little fun with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because what you can do, it's so easy to do. It's kind of like what you talked about this morning when you were with Hecubus on his Breakfast with Hecubus show. It's just, you got to define who you are. Every customer's not going to be a customer, right? It's just
no.
I mean,
if you think so, Wayne, you're going to be chasing. You're going to be chasing a lot of like empty trails.
It's like it's like a dog chasing her tail, man. You're just going in a circle, thinking every customer is going to be a fit. I mean, we've had two customers this morning already, or potential customers call, wanting things done that it just don't fit for us, and then they get mad at you because you try to explain to them why they're not a fit. It's like, well, I thought you were in the lawn business. Well, I am in the lawn business, but I know how I want to do it, and I think that's something that I would like our listeners for our show today to understand, that it's okay to find out why a customer doesn't fit, right?
Okay. It happens. It happens to me all the time. It happened to me last couple days ago. I had a lady that called me up. She said she wanted to put a pool house in. And I'm a designer, right? I design. I'm a conceptual designer first, right? I'm not. I don't have a stamp. I can't get. I'm not an architect where I can do it, or an engineer where I can stamp designs. Hey, I don't. But when she called me up, she said to me, she goes, Darren, I want to build a pool house. She goes, you're a designer. You can build that pool house for me. And I looked at it. I said, let me find out a little bit more about your project, and we'll go from there. So I have a system where I can find out more without actually going on there. I talked about that today. But I looked at it, and I looked at this big pool house, this job. I said, she's going to spend $150,000 on this pool house. The picture that she uploaded, right? And I said, and I'm thinking, wow, this is a big job. And I'm like, but it's not for me. She's beyond me. She needs an engineer. She needs someone that can work, that can do, it's out of my scope of work, even though I would love to have that job. And I want to ultimately build it for her. But she's already past that point of design.
Right.
And I had to let her go. And I'm like, that's at least $100. I'm looking at that job, $150,000. That just fell into my lap, and I had to let it go.
And you knew that was the best thing for you and her.
Yeah, because I would have wasted time, because she didn't need me. And I've had a couple people that I've gone to, and I've said, I don't think you need me. I met another young lady on Saturday. I went all the way up to Delray Beach to talk to her. She doesn't, Wayne, you'd love this. She wants to do something in her backyard, but she doesn't spend any time outside. And I'm like, how can you, I can't, I'm not the right guy for you. I want to make your outdoor living amazing, but you're not going to go outside? I'm not the guy. Why would you want to spend thousands of dollars on something you're never going to use? So you have to pick, right? You have to pick your customers. I told her, I said, I'm not the guy. She goes, I'll pay you to do a design. I said, what can I do? You don't want to spend you're not going to spend money. I can't design. I don't want to waste your time.
It's nice to hear you say that, Darren, that, you charge for a design, because I think this is just a last night story on social media. I was sitting there going through it, and, the proverbial question came up of, hey, what should I charge for this? And this guy had a picture. I don't know if this was the real picture, but it was a layout of, it was an engineer drawn perspective on what they wanted on this landscape, right? And so I said, well, the first thing in looking at the scope of this work, this just isn't for anybody. It was one of those jobs that the guy that had, he puts this picture of this drawing. I can't think of what the hell they're called now. Jesus, We look at them all the time. But anyway, this just drawing up there, and it's out. It certainly is out of it's out of the range of what this person should even be asking. What should I bid? And so I started off with the basics with it, Darren. With them, I said, hey, first thing you need to know is, hey, man, what's the cost per hour? How many plants are going in? What's your plant cost going to be? And I said, there's a lot of variables, right? And would you agree to that? There's just a ton of variables when it comes to landscape. I mean, there's variables with everything, but don't we just see variables all the time that we got to think about? What's your opinion on that?
I got to tell you, I think, and it's hard, because we've all been there. You and I have been there. We were asking those questions when we were younger. What should I charge?
Right.
What it all comes down to is education.
Right.
If we can just tell people that are listening and say, look, we've been there. And then they might say to us, people like us, well, you made it this far. You got it. You got through all that time. So how'd you do that? So, we finally figured out that, and we don't ever want to, we'll always teach people to try to do it the right way, but people want to figure it out. They'll do it themselves, right? Most of the people will do it themselves. They'll figure it out the way they'll take the easiest route, right?
That's right. It's the path of least resistance. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: if you can look at it this way, if you asked me for advice and you knew the chance of me being wrong was probably 90%. But you asked me for my advice and because you wanted to go by whatever I said. But the chance of me being wrong was 90% for the answer, right? Would you ask me? Would you really want to ask me? Would you really rely on my,
probably not, right? But
probably not, right?
Probably not.
So why are you doing that on Facebook? Why are you going out there and asking those questions when you know those answers? I mean, I'm telling you, 90% of those answers are going to be wrong. Right. For you, not necessarily for them, but for you.
It could be the exact right answer for the person given the answer, but it doesn't mean that it's right for you. And, like I tell guys all the time that if our competitors were so smart, and I do not, this comes out wrong every time I say it, but you see the point. If our competitors were so smart, the failure rates for our industry would not be so high. They don't have to believe me. They don't have to believe you. They don't have to believe a business coach that they've hired necessarily. But all they have to do is look at the industry. And that's what the numbers for our industry don't lie. And the failure rates are staggering. And why? Because we're an easy entry business. And I'm a firm believer in it. That's why I got into it. That's why most people get into it. Hey, I'm just going to mow a few lawns. That's that's the entry level most of the time. So we get a truck, we get a trailer, we go out and we mow 10 yards, and then 10 becomes 20, and then you got 40, now you got 100. And, what didn't take place in that whole process is no business methodology. No business methodology.